Joining me now is a top Trump surrogate who has also been mentioned as a potential running mate, including on Friday night, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida. Congressman Donalds, welcome back to Meet the Press.
It's good to be back with you. Thanks for having me on. And Kristen, let me push back a little bit. You have to acknowledge the fact that now that the Robert Hur report has come out about Joe Biden's misuse of classified information, which is a violation of the Espionage Act, he had no rights to any of those documents when he was a senator or vice president. Yet there are no charges against President Biden, but President Trump is under prosecution. Come on, we know that doesn't make any sense at all.
I have to hit the pause button for 1 minute, Congressman, because the Hur report was very clear that there was not enough evidence to bring charges against President Biden, and that ultimately there was not enough. That is what the Hur report said. Congressman, that is exactly what the Hur report said. Yes, it is. It said that there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough evidence to bring charges.
You cannot possess those documents.
But this is the special counsel Hur report. Hur on Joe Biden. Exhibit after exhibit after exhibit of Joe Biden's felonies. Felonies under the Espionage Act when he was vice president, when he was a private citizen, and when he was a senator. The evidence against Joe Biden in the Espionage Act, there's scores of examples of his committing felonies. And the only reason they didn't bring the case, they said, is because he's an imbecile. That was the bottom line.
And because the Hur report was very clear that there was not enough evidence to bring charges against President Biden.
It's because he's an imbecile.
And that ultimately there was not enough. That is what the Hur report said.
But there's enough probable cause in this document to bring hundreds of charges against Joe Biden, depending on the statute of limitations.
Congressman, that is exactly what the Hur report said. Yes, it is. It said that there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough evidence to bring charges.
You cannot possess those documents.
He says Biden, quote, willfully retained and disclosed highly classified materials when he was a private citizen. Some of those materials even included sensitive national security documents. But, Hur says, evidence showed he kept the materials, quote, by mistake. But in declining to prosecute, Hur cites Biden's, quote, limited memory. In fact, in the report, investigators write, quote, we have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory.
No right to those documents as a senator or a vice president. They must remain in a secure facility. Joe Biden took them from a SCIF. That's a violation of the Espionage Act, period.
Okay. All right. Bottom line, though, Hur himself said there wasn't enough evidence to bring charges. Let's move on to this next topic, though.
And there are times where he walks into the room with his ghostwriter and he says, look, I have classified documents here. And you know where they were located. You saw the pictures in the report. He's got classified documents dating back to when Tito was running Yugoslavia. And people say, well, and focused on his mindset.
He even says to the ghostwriter, they don't know I have these.
I know. It's
you read
crazy.
That line? They don't know I have these. So that's a confession. So a man's guilty.
Let me get your reaction to President Biden's State of the Union address. The Democrats are obviously standing and applauding. Didn't see much standing and applauding on the Republican side. Not a surprise. But what did you make of the speech?
Well, it was highly partisan. And I think what the president was trying to do is rally his base. But he didn't talk about the conditions of the country. He didn't really bring solutions for the conditions and the crises in the country. He talked about things he wanted to do, but if you add up all of the laundry list, it would add another $1 trillion to our annual deficits on top of the $2 trillion annual deficits under Joe Biden. How are the American people supposed to pay for this? He talks inflation. Everything he wants to do is only going to create more of it.
You're talking about, for example, one of his proposals is actually to raise taxes on large corporations, on wealthy Americans, not touching taxes for anyone who makes $400,000. Why is that something that you disagree with? He says people who make more money should pay their fair share.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, that didn't apply to his son. First of all, that didn't apply to his son. because his son evaded taxes.
According to the 56-page court filing, a federal grand jury in California has returned a 9-count indictment charging Hunter Biden with 3 felony tax offenses and 6 misdemeanor tax charges. The president's son engaged in a 4-year scheme to avoid paying on at least $1.4 million in federal taxes. He is also accused of taking false business deductions to reduce his tax liability.
Number 2, if you start raising corporate taxes in a time where inflation is still high, you're actually going to depress economic growth in our country, not increase it. And number 3, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that he referenced in his speech has raised more revenue for the federal treasury than at any other time in American history. It actually has brought in record revenue to the federal government. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
You heard that right. Democrats assert that the Trump tax cuts passed in 2017 were a giveaway to the rich. That's false. The income tax bill for rich individuals has actually gone up, not down.
Let me play you what he said on Social Security and get your reaction on that.
Sure.
Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government.
So, yes, we can verify. While a senator, Joe Biden proposed a bill that would sunset federal spending programs, including Social Security and Medicare.
And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a 3rd time, and I tried it a 4th time.
Because for the last 40 years, as early as 1984 and as recently as 2018, Joe Biden has been advocating for a cut in Social Security.
We have 2 ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal.
That's false.
Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
We choose truth over lies.
And today, the frontrunner tried to fact-check President Trump's claims that the economy is roaring.
Even the Heritage Foundation has pointed out that his tax cut did not work.
The Heritage Foundation's senior policy analyst happened to catch that, and
I was dumbfounded. The tax cuts are working.
So we asked Biden to clarify.
Well, I was referring to early on, they said they talked about whether or not that it stimulated the economy significantly. In the early studies, that wasn't.
But Heritage says that's not right either.
The Heritage Foundation has been supportive of the tax cuts. We think that they are benefiting Americans across the country.
I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealth. That's good to hear.
What do you make of that?
A couple things. First of all, the president's gaslighting the American people. The Congressional Budget Office and OMB don't even agree with his numbers when it comes to tax policy that was written by Republicans, which has been successful for the country. But when it comes to Social Security, Republicans have brought no proposal about Social Security. But we do say that the CBO has said the programs go insolvent in 9 years. When they go insolvent, it will be a 22% benefit cut across the board for all seniors. So Congress does have to find a remedy to secure Social Security for the long run.
President Biden effectively tried to paint Congress as a do-nothing Congress. He said, look, we had a bipartisan deal. And then Donald Trump came and said, don't accept this deal unless it's a perfect deal. It was a deal that Senator Lindsey Graham had praised.
We've looked through this Senate bill. And let me just say, it is a steaming pile of shit. Sorry, but I had to describe it in the way it has to be described.
It was a deal that didn't include a pathway to citizenship. Does he have a point on that?
No, he's wrong. And the reason why he's wrong is because when elements of that deal were being leaked out by somebody in the Senate, the Speaker of the House and House Republicans said that deal's dead on arrival in the House. You can finish negotiating it if you want to, but if the basic elements of allowing 5,000 illegal immigrants per day to come into the country before you take any measures to secure the border, that's a non-starter.
Just quickly, the deal would not have allowed 5,000 immigrants to come into the country illegally. It would have, at a certain point, once a certain number of migrants were being processed, would have allowed the border to be shut down. So
they say that, well, the bill has a ironclad trigger that when the border crossings in any one given day exceed 5,000 illegal immigrants, illegal crossings, that the border will be shut down. No one else will be let in. So what the bill is basically saying is that the border is secure as long as we're basically letting about 1.8 million illegal immigrants in the country every year.
Point, once a certain number of migrants were being processed, would have allowed the border to be shut down. So they wouldn't have allowed them to just come in illegally.
Coming into the country, process into the country, those are semantical phrases. The reality is it's an overwhelming number for the American people. We can't do that.
The question.
Now, do you actually trust these open border politicians who have failed time and time again to actually enforce the 5,000 per day trigger? I don't.
The reality is it's an overwhelming number for the American people. We can't do that.
The question, I guess, is why not do something? If this is such a crisis at the southern border, why wouldn't Republicans take this opportunity to do something, to pass this legislation? And just to follow up with you on that, is there any possibility of something getting done, or are we just too close to the election? Well, can you really say you did everything and that you have done everything possible for the border when you've opposed that deal?
In the House, we passed H.R. 2. It is the most robust border security package ever to pass a chamber of Congress. And I stress, Kristen, H.R. 2 has passed the House. The Senate deal did not pass the Senate. Chuck Schumer in the Senate won't even take it up for debate. He ignores it. That's on Chuck Schumer. But at the core of this entire question, the number one job is to secure the country. Joe Biden doesn't even need legislation to secure the country. He could do that right now. He could undo all of his executive orders that he put into place when he became president of the United States. That's what created the crisis that we have today. A couple of things. First, House Republicans have done something. We're the only chamber that's passed a bill, H.R. 2. It is passed the House. The Senate refuses to even talk about it or debate it. So if we're going to talk about wanting to negotiate, maybe it's time for the White House to look at the House's proposal and start talking and negotiating from that perspective.
As you know, H.R. 2 is a non-starter in the Senate, and even Mexico said they won't work with you on it.
But the Senate bill was a non-starter in the House, so you can't have it both ways.
Let me ask you this just quickly before I let you go. I know that Speaker Johnson had encouraged you all to show decorum in the chamber tonight. There were some outbursts. How did you view this? Did you think there was enough decorum in the chamber tonight? How do you assess how your colleagues behaved?
Look, it was very hard for a lot of members to maintain decorum when the president just repeatedly lied about his own record. And when this speech was partisan, it was not designed to unite the country. It was not designed to actually talk about the State of the Union. It was designed to launch his presidential campaign. Members didn't want to sit there for that, and so you had some outbursts, yes.
And you didn't have a problem with that? With the outburst?
Listen, at this point, we just want solutions for the country, and that did not occur tonight.
All right.